So you often see people go into a gym and steer clear of any free weights, or they use them with extremely light weight and horrible form with slow tempo, thinking that that's actually going to build a muscle. And despite the time-proven efficacy of the barbell lifts and other free weight exercises, people like to ignore them. People just like to ignore them. People are averse to barbell training. People are averse to heavy lifting because they see it solely as strength training. They don't see it as beneficial toward their goal of, let's say, building muscle, toning, because that is something that still exists in the minds of most people who enter the gym. And this could not be further from the truth. Despite the prevalence of anti-barbell sentiment in the gym, a lot of it comes from us. A lot of it comes from the people who use barbells. A lot of it comes from the people who advocate its usage because we just don't know how to properly communicate with the people who are scared to use it. And that's why it's necessary that we have this discussion today to talk about anti-barbell culture, where it comes from, and how we can deal with it. So if you're unsure about using barbells in your own program, or if you know people who are unsure about using barbells, this video is for you. My name is Carl King, stanstraining.com. On my website, you can find my online personal training. I am a power builder, and you will also find the preferred fitness apparel of the strong and the self-starters. This is one of our shirts. So in this video, I'm going to be talking about anti-barbell culture. Now let's talk about where it comes from and the arguments that are presented on both sides. So usually what ends up happening is when one group or one entity or one, let's say, when a lot of people just start spewing a very, very strong opinion, what usually ends up happening is that a counter argument or a counter opinion will form that is just as strong, and the two will clash over and over. And then what ends up happening is that the people in the middle are stuck between it, and they just won't know what to do because the analysis by paralysis will take over. And as a result, what ends up happening is that the truth, the most useful way to utilize information, just gets lost in the argument. So let's look at the argument that is being taken care of here. What usually ends up happening is, for the people who are spouting the all barbell all the time argument, they're saying three things. They are making the claim that strength is equal or about equal to size. Then they will go on to say that the barbell lifts are the best for strength, and therefore, if you get strong at the barbell lifts, you will be a very big person. You'll have a lot of big muscles. You're going to look great. And this is a valid argument. If strength is about equal to size, and the barbell lifts are the best for strength, if those two things are true, it would be logically impossible to say that using the barbell lifts would not be conducive for the goal of size, if those two premises were true. However, the moment you start asking yourself, well, what does strength mean? And what barbell lifts? Because if you just go based off the squat, bench, and deadlift, which have a wide variety of holes, they don't hit every single muscle in the body. And if strength is just 1 RM, you know guys who are very, very strong 1 rep max wise, but they're not that big. And sure, they're bigger for their frame, sure, they're bigger than other people who are of the same weight class or same height and other stats, but generally speaking, it's not that they're just huge mass monsters just because they have a big lift. We know people who have huge lift, and we would never think that just looking at them. So we know that's not really the case, but that's the argument that they present. Now let's talk about the anti-barbell argument. And they make some very great points as well. First, they argue that the barbell lifts are not the best for building mass or building muscle. They then argue that the barbell lifts are great at building strength, which is not needed for size. Therefore, you should not use the big compound lifts to build mass, and therefore, you do not need or should not do the barbell lifts. There are other things that are considered within this argument, such as, let's say, injury. These are things that usually used as supporting points or premises. But this is also true. We know that there's no such thing as an exercise that you need to do. There's no such thing as a training modality that is 100% necessary, or else hypertrophy is just not going to occur. And we do know that strength, if strength is just top end 1 RM strength, that might not be the most conducive, and it's more likely not to be the most conducive for the best size gains. That's why the best strength athletes look very different from the best bodybuilding athletes, but there is something that is similar between the two, and that's what we're going to get into a bit later. So let's think about this a little bit. If the premises are true in both arguments, what do we do with this information? What I would say is that both of them have a piece of the argument, but they don't have the whole argument. And the thing is, both of them present valid points. Strength is a component that is about equal to size. There is a lot of overlap between the two. But here's the thing, you need to really think to yourself, what do I mean by strength? And then let's look at the barbell lifts. They are great for building strength, but at the same time, we know that if strength is defined by or measured by just 1 RM, it's probably not the best for building size, because what purpose does a 1 rep max serve to a bodybuilder? Answer, it doesn't. So that's why it's really important to understand the context and the definition, a common definition of what strength means. And that's why it's important when you have these two arguments, they're not really using strength in the same way. So for example, if I were to say, like, let's say I'm in a classroom, right? And I'm telling everyone in here, or I'm talking to everyone in here, everyone within this room is bright. Bright things light up a room. Therefore, the bright people are what lights up this room. The thing is, bright is being used in two different definitions. In one way, if you call a person bright, you're saying they're smart. But if you say bright, then that means there's a light on somewhere, and then that's like illuminating the room. But they're not the same thing, even though they use the same word. Same thing applies here. You're saying strength, but when a power lifter hears strength, they think 1 RM, squat, bench, deadlift. When a bodybuilder hears strength, they might still think of that definition, but it has absolutely no bearing for them. So when you tell a bodybuilder you need to get stronger, they'll think, well, I'm a bodybuilder. Why do I need to increase my 1 rep max in squat, bench, and deadlift? That's why a common definition of strength is so important. And that's why we need to reword the argument. We need to apply a common definition and go from there. So this is what I argue for. Strength is about equal to size for the natural lifter, but it's not exactly equal. And the barbell lifts are great for strength and size, but it's not the best. A mixture of training modalities and a focus on progression is what is best for size and strength results. Therefore, you should use both. I am hard pressed to think of anyone who is worth their salt who would argue against this, and most of the people who I meet who do argue against this are usually people who will put too much stock into, let's say, time under tension, or, try to go too deeply into biomechanics, or try to find all these niche things that are kind of trying to replace or undermine time-tested methods. There are a shit ton of methods out there, but principles are few. So I think that anyone who is honestly trying to make someone bigger and stronger, or just bigger or just stronger, needs to think to themselves about a combination of both free weight movements, barbells, dumbbells, and isolation movements using machines, cables, and the like. So let's go back to the point that I made about a common definition of strength. Now, strength for the powerlifter and strength for the bodybuilder I've already touched on. Powerlifter, 1 RM, squat, bench, dead. For the bodybuilder, what is strength? So the thing is, I would say that strength for the bodybuilder is more so just the process of getting stronger. So let's say they are trying to improve their 5 rep max in the squat, bench, deadlift, overhead press, barbell row, weighted chin up, weighted dip, and just see how different their physique would be if they added anywhere between 50 to 100 pounds to all of those lifts. If they did that, they would be much bigger at that point in time than they would be at the other point in time. But you could add weight to your 1 rep max and not really get that much bigger, because there's ways to manipulate it. You can manipulate your form. You can, like, the main difference between strength training and size training is the priming of the nervous system. So if you're just more neurologically inclined to lift heavier loads, but you're not really subjecting your muscles to enough tension and tonnage to actually stimulate growth, you will be like stronger in a specific sense, but you're not going to be exactly bigger. But if you get stronger in a variety of exercises with a variety of training modalities and in a variety of quality rep ranges, you will be a lot bigger. So one thing that is important here is that size for the bodybuilder and size for the powerlifter are not really, they're not pursued the exact same way. For the bodybuilder, as long as it builds the muscles you're trying to build, who cares what it is? Oh, sorry about that. But yeah, if it builds the muscle, who cares? Like, you experiment, you find out what works for other people, you experiment on yourself, see if it works for you, and go from there, right? Now, for the powerlifter, because they have another goal that they're trying to handle, specificity does have to be obeyed. So for the powerlifter, they need to do what has carryover to their lifts and to the big movements that they're trying to develop. That's why usually, let's say a bodybuilder who's trying to build up their hamstrings will bias toward, let's say, hamstring curls, like maybe some Nordic hamstring curls or glute ham raises, whereas a powerlifter would probably do something more like a stiff-legged deadlift, a Romanian deadlift, or something of that nature. I do think bodybuilders would benefit from using both, and I think powerlifters would benefit from using both, but we'll get into that. So, you need to understand that size and strength has a different context and a different definition for both. But if there was one way of going about it, or if there was a way of understanding it, it's just understanding the different context of the two. If you are trying to get stronger as a bodybuilder, it needs to be in a variety of different movements. It needs to be in a variety of rep ranges. And you just needs to be more than just 3 movements and your 1 rep max in that one. In that way. Whereas for the body, or for the powerlifter who's trying to get bigger, they need to make sure that they're always obeying the law of specificity. However, these are things that can exist with one another and still benefit from using barbells. These two ways of thinking, these two definitions, these two ideas, they don't conflict with each other, which is one of the biggest issues I see with people nowadays who think to themselves, I need to be a power lifter because all I care about is strength, and then they neglect bodybuilding work. Or I need to be a bodybuilder, so I don't even need to touch a barbell. I just need to feel the muscle and get a pump. And what ends up happening is that years down the line, one guy gets fat, but his deadlift increases, but he's also added way more fat onto his body than he needed to. And the bodybuilder will have gone to the gym for a year, and like, he just looks lean, or at worst, he just still looks just as small because he did not really add that much quality muscle to himself, because he didn't get much stronger than he was when he first started. So the thing that we can do from here, there's a lot of things that we can do. The first thing is, don't be dogmatic. This is something that I was guilty of. This is something that I do have my biases for. I do bias toward the barbell movements as being a necessity in your training. However, I will never say that that is all you need. No, if anyone tells you just do this, or only do this, or just have this, they are setting you down a path that you don't want to go down, because you're going to start to develop imbalances. You're going to like move further away from your own goals. You're going to find that the way you're training is not conducive to who you want to be, right? And then the next way you can find someone who is not, let's say, the most honest person with the information that they're giving you is if they say, this is useless. I do not personally prioritize machine work all that much within my workouts, but I'm not going to say it's useless. If I need to, let's say, cut corners in my workout, the first thing that's going to be like gone is the machine stuff. But all things being equal, things are going well in my life, and I actually have the time to train properly, I will include machine work, because the stimulus to fatigue ratio is better. I'm not going to fatigue my back and my spine all that much, but I'm still able to stimulate the muscle well. So why not? But the thing is, I'm never going to say, well, if you want to build muscle, all you need to do is machines, or all you need to do is barbells. There are better and worse decisions as time goes on and as the situation dictates, but all things being equal, things being in the most optimal conditions, you should use a variety of everything. Now, the next thing that we can do is teaching proper form and progression. This is one of my biggest issues with personal trainers. I myself am a personal trainer. I've been a personal trainer for a couple of years now. I have worked in commercial gyms, and the biggest issue I have with most commercial gym personal trainers is that they have zero knowledge about big basic movements, and they have no knowledge of progressions leading up to that point. So for example, me personally, I will try to teach you how to barbell bench press, just because I think of it as an investment into leveraging into better gains down the line. However, I will spend maybe 10-20 minutes of the session doing that, and then the rest of the session will be like push-ups, dips, machine work, dumbbell work, because they have a lower technical threshold, but they will only serve you and help you when you get back to the barbell movement. Whereas with a lot of trainers, they'll do like just these really weird exercises and say like, "Oh, do you feel your muscle? Do you feel it?" Like they're gonna think that just by feeling the muscle that's going to help them somehow. Like I can do a variety of things to make you sore. I can do a variety of things to make you feel a pump. I can do a variety of things to like induce a cramp into your muscle, and none of those things are going to build you muscle, build you any amount of size, any amount of strength. Then let's say for going back into this squatting. If I have a client, I've trained many elderly clients, and my biggest thing was let's get them up to speed to be able to train like anyone else would. So usually it's like training their ability to use their legs, like building up their hip mobility, building up their ability to sit down and come back up, and then being able to sit down and come back up without a box. Then like there's progressions that can be there, but the thing is a lot of personal trainers just suck at implementing that, and a lot of people suck at implementing that for themselves. They have no concept of how to progress. This is why I know someone in my gym who they will say that they maxed out every machine in the gym, and I just think to myself like, yeah, because like for one, you're starting to half rep everything. For two, you're putting load on there that you're not even ready for. And three, like how many reps can you do with the max stack? Like it's not even all that much. Like there are other things, other issues that you're just neglecting, and that's what's limiting you right now, right? So we need to do a better job at teaching people how to properly lift and build them up. So can you do push-ups? Can you bench press properly? And then one thing that this will do is it will make them less fearful of injury. We have often seen like those horrible videos where people get snapped up, and like whether in a deadlift their bicep tears, in a bench press their pec tears, and there's a couple issues with this. For one, most of the time those injuries come from drug enhanced athletes. It does not matter for you as a natural. It just doesn't. If your form is good, if your progression is good, the likelihood of that happening to you, and if you make smart decisions, the likelihood of that happening to you is extremely low. So if you are going to train with the barbell, don't be a jackass. Like if your form isn't good, accept that your form isn't good. The biggest issue is that people try to think that, oh, if I just add more weight or if I just keep going, eventually it'll just be good by itself. No, becoming good at something is a very purposeful endeavor. You need to have the proper intent. You need to actually give it time to get better. So, oftentimes, what will happen if with people who are on that anti-barbell side of things, they'll get injured because they didn't know how to lift properly, and they don't know how to progress properly. All they do is add load all the time. They change their form to try to get more load on the bar, but they don't understand that that is, by its definition, no longer progressive overload, because you're now basically doing a completely different movement. If you are thinking that all you need to do is get stronger, that's also going to be a detriment to you, because your form does need to stay the exact same. That's why form is so important. That's why teaching novices and teaching people how to progress in a variety of different ways is super important. Because if someone gets injured, they're going to think to themselves, oh, that's why people say like, oh, I deadlifted before, but then I injured my back, so that's why I never deadlift anymore. And then the first thing that I think to myself is, well, like, let's just put up the lightest weight we can on the bar and just show me your deadlift form. And usually what ends up happening is that it was a horrible deadlift. Or I'll just ask them like, can you show me how you hinge? Or can you show me how you do something? And then I will see that that is why you got injured. It's very similarly, if someone says like, oh, I'm afraid to bench press because I see all these videos of people snapping their pec. It's just so frustrating, because in a world where we are just connected like so much via social media, via everything of that nature, you're going to start comparing yourself in ways that are just illogical for a variety of different reasons. You will compare yourself, like let's say you're just starting out, you're comparing yourself to someone who's been lifting 10, 20 years. You're comparing yourself to someone who is enhanced. You're comparing yourself with someone who has horrible training form, and you don't recognize that it's horrible form because they look good. That is another reason why this kind of anti-barbell sentiment comes up. There's a lot of things that go about it. The people who use barbells are too dogmatic, and the people who don't use barbells or use them improperly just leave such a sour taste in the mouths of anyone else who uses it. So let's lead into my next point, which is arguing over the piece of equipment that we use is pointless. The thing that you need to worry about is what equipment do you have available, and can you apply consistency and effort to them? can you apply sustainability and progression to them? If you are unable to use barbells, use whatever you have to the best of your ability. But if you have the ability to use both, use both. You are going to find that the amount of progression that you can put on a variety of different movements is going to be much better, and the gains are going to be much better than if you just relied on one thing. So this is the final solution, and that is quite simply, do what you can, do what works, do what you like, try everything before you start bashing it, see what you like, see if it works, or make it work, and don't just automatically assume it doesn't because you see people on the internet like get hurt, or you see that someone in your gym just is, you know, like super dogmatic about it. Like, find out for yourself. If you don't have a good example, let yourself be your own good example. So in closing with this conversation about anti-barbell culture, what I want you to think about is quite simply this. Take what is useful, discard what is not. Automatically discarding something you have no experience with will hurt your progress and not help it. So that's it for this video. If you like this video, there is a whole playlist of content just like this. If you would like to work with me for your strength and size goals, check out my website for coaching. But if you are happy with your strength and size and want to support the channel, you can buy the most aesthetic and anabolic merch on the internet by Stan Strength Apparel. So thank you so much for watching. Have a good day.